Here.
Mr. Haas,
Here.
Ms. House,
Here.
Ms. McDermott,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Radel,
Here.
Ms. Edmonds,
Here.
Mr. Schnee,
Present.
Mr. Urban,
Here.
Mr. Vogt, Mr. Vogt,
I know he was having trouble with his connection. I don't know what the status is, but he had sent me a text that he was having trouble with it. So hopefully he'll come back on.
McGinley,
Present?
and Mr. Vogt. Nope, okay. Yes, 10 of 11 present.
Very good. Additions or deletions from the work session agenda, Mr. Haas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put on the agenda in addition discussion of considering a budget amendment for fiscal year 2020 concerning the Luzerne Libraries Association, given the fact that the services have been stopped for a good part of the summer, or in some cases minimal.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Haas had sent me that email earlier this week, and he had a conversation, and I had a conversation with Mr. Miller, who is the administrator for the library system. I believe Mr. Miller is on our line, and he had sent us some information that I had forwarded out to everybody earlier this afternoon. Mr. Bo is on the line. He sent me a text message, but he's muted because there's a problem with his audio. So hopefully that'll be corrected. Chris Jared is working on that. So we will add that discussion about a budget amendment regarding library funding per Mr. Haas's request. Any problem with that? Okay.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Deletion, I would like to delete item number 10 from the agenda, please. Regarding the ordinance, for the discussion of the ordinance. Ordinances shouldn't be discussed, at least until they're introduced. But more importantly, that whole thing needs to go to code review first.
Well, you made a suggestion to delete it. How do people feel? I hear no comment.
Second motion.
Well, I don't know if it was a motion, it was a suggestion, but fine.
Okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts? If not, it's deleted. Okay. Bearing that in mind and knowing that, the hour is closing in at 9 o'clock already, I'm going to ask Mr. Sweats to move his budget reports to the end, because he's going to be with us to the end. And we have some visitors on the line that I'd like to give them an opportunity so they don't have to spend the rest of the night with us. So actually, I'd like to do number 3 first. Mr. Jones is on the line, and then I'd like to do that library discussion because Mr. Miller is on the line. And then we can go back and follow through with the agenda. So if we do number 3 first, a discussion regarding the resolution approving the KBJ Real Estate Investment LLC Cooperation Indemnity Agreement for grant funding for the KBJ Startup Community Project and authorizing Luzerne County to reimburse the Commonwealth for the Commonwealth's share of ineligible costs incurred. Ms. Corcoran or Mr. DeLuca, did that come from the Office of Law?
Yes, it did. There was a request that this be submitted to council. Council would need the approval to approve this. It's a redevelopment assistance capital grant. I have Chris Jones on the line, who is the owner of KBG Real Estate Investments. And I also have Chris Kelly on the line, who acts as the compliance firm for this project. So I'm going to invite both of them to discuss the project. And if you have any questions, please raise them now. And if you require any other information, we can get that to you.
Okay.
Mr. Jones?
So thank you so much, Mr. McGinley. It's great to see you and
It's true. It's been a while since I.
Yeah, I know. It's great to see you.
Last time I did a cap and gown, the last time I saw you, so.
We might have bumped into each other at Kevin's about a year back, but so this is regarding the accelerator in downtown Wilkes-Barre. In April of last year, I acquired part of the Guard Insurance campus to turn it into the state of Pennsylvania's second business accelerator. As part of that acquisition, there was the grant in question of $1 million. I have worked my tail off over this last year and a half to make sure that we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. The project I would consider so far to be a resounding success, even considering the very difficult economy we're in. And we have created dozens of new jobs. The building hosts some of the most innovative companies in the entire region, including companies like Mobility, who was last year's Emerging Business of the Year at the Wilkes-Barre Chamber, Studio B, which is a corporate mindfulness training company, and many others that I'm supporting with just my business acumen, as well as we have a program to move these people through sort of a business acceleration, which I had really developed during my early years at Pepper Jam, and then through the last 10 years as a professional investor with KBJ Capital, who also has space in the building. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the project, I wanted to give you a little bit more info. Some of you have seen the building. I welcome any council member to come down. I'd love giving tours is probably one of my favorite parts of the project. We could show off our state-of-the-art podcasting and live video streaming studio that we put into the first floor, as well as with some of you maybe share some Wilkes University stories, because you guys know that used to be the Wilkes Business School back in the day. Chris Cawley is with Ashburn Advisors. We retained Ashburn as part of the compliance expectations and process. Chris has been really great to work with, and Chris Cawley, I'll just pass it to you to add in any other details that you think are relevant.
All right, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Council, for having me in front of you guys this evening. I've been before Council a couple times before for the same type of request, but for any of you who are new to Council, this indemnity and cooperation agreement is a requirement of the grant program, which requires the grantee and subgrantee. The grantee is the Greater Wilkes-Barre Industrial Fund, and the subgrantee is Chris's company on this project, to have a taxing body act as a backstop for the grant project. So this is, out of all the grants in the Commonwealth, this is probably the most complex and most compliance related out of all of them. And there's three different levels of compliance that I want to tell you about, just to give you assurance that all is fine. The first level of compliance starts with my office reviewing everything, between the Greater Wilkes-Barre IF and Chris's company. We then in turn work with an engineering firm engaged by the Office of the Budget, who acts as their oversight for the project. So they have to review it as well too. That engineering firm then gives their report back to the Office of the Budget on any type of recommendations. Then thirdly, everything is handed back to the Office of the Budget for their final review. So no funds are dispersed to the grantee / subgrantee until 100% of the compliance has been met. So in all my years of dealing with the redevelopment assistance capital program, there has never been an issue that I've run across that has put a taxing body at jeopardy. But if anybody has any questions, please speak up. I could try to answer any and all.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes,
It's
Ms.
Linda.
Knott, go ahead.
I have several questions. Thank you for joining us tonight, gentlemen. My first question is what the taxing body or the local municipality, which I read in the document, that needs to be the backup here. Why is it Luzerne County and not the city of Wilkes-Barre?
I personally have worked with Luzerne County before on this. I just found it easier to work with a taxing body that is familiar with the process. The last two projects that I had presented and were approved by the prior council was a project with Misericordia University and another project known as 8 West Market Street.
Okay, I don't remember having one of a project come before us that we approved that required us to pay any costs that were deemed ineligible. I don't recall ever having that something like that come before us. So were these similar agreements or were those different agreements on those two projects?
No, they're actually the exact same agreements because I used them as templates for this project.
Okay. And the Greater Wilkes-Barre Industrial Fund, is that a function of the Chamber of Commerce or is that
Yes.
an offshoot of the Industrial Development Authority?
Offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
As far as ineligible costs, what would they be? What kind of costs would be ineligible? You have any idea?
Well, in Chris's project,
Go ahead.
In Chris's project, it's relatively simple.
Yeah.
He has $1 million grant, and so he has to provide $1 million match.
Right.
$900,000 plus or minus is being provided by the acquisition of the building, and $100,000 is being provided through renovation/construction.
Okay.
So in this instance, everything has already been approved by my office, the engineering firm engaged by Office of the Budget, and Office of the Budget as well too. So there is no ineligible cost at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
It's Linda. I have one more question. Could you give me the
Sure.
years of those other agreements that you said that we approved?
I'm going to go by memory, Linda. It was at least a year to 2 years ago.
Okay. So you would say around 2018 or 19?
Yes.
And what was the name of the project?
8 West Market Street
Okay.
was the one, and then Misericordia University. They were the sub-grantee. I don't remember the name of the project, but Misericordia
Okay.
University would have been all over the document.
And they were both in the last 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think you'll probably find them not in 2019. I think it probably 18 or 17.
I think
Okay.
it was 17.
Yeah, I do remember both those.
I think it was 17, to
Yep.
be honest
Great,
with you.
thanks.
And then there's one from 2011 too.
Well,
But if you want, I can
That
get those to you,
predated
Councilwoman
Home Rule.
Haupt. Do you want me to get those to you?
Well, if you'd like to do that,
Okay.
that would be great. But
Sure.
2011 predates home rule.
Yes, it does. But I just, I have some notes here. That's all. And I'm relaying what I looked up. But I can get you those documents.
Thank you. That'd be very helpful.
Sure.
Other questions?
Mr. McGinley?
Go ahead.
So is that property that we're talking about KOZ right now currently?
It is not.
It is not KOZ.
It is not.
Okay.
No, I
Okay,
think
and-
that was the property owned, the guard insurance was in there. Is that right, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Well, I know the Sterling property is KOZ.
Yeah, but the guard insurance was in that private, used to be
Right,
called
that's on the
Parish
other
Hall
corner.
when Wilkes University owned it. Parish
Right,
Hall.
it's-
Walter,
Yep.
Walter, it's 16 to 24 South River. So,
right,
pop over the Market Street Bridge. It's the sign that we put up that lights up at night. So it's the old 5-story Wilkes-Barre Coal Company, and then Wilkes University, and then of course the Chevals bought it, and it became the headquarters of Guard. The second property in question is the one right next door at 24 River, and that's a 3-story. They've used it for commercial purposes over the last 20 some years. Both are on the tax roll to the tune of somewhere combined in like the $80,000 to $90,000 a year range. Just to give you, not just a guesstimate, but
yeah,
it's
I knew the other corner was KOZ. I just wasn't sure if it extended over to South River or not.
Yep.
The other question is, you have to come up with $1 million, correct? And how are you gonna come up with your 50%?
So I already have. It was, and if we go back to April of last year, it was when I actually acquired the property. And then part of that financing included renovation budget. So it was, let's just call it a $2 million financing package on a $1.8 million acquisition. And so I've put in now, in addition to the 100, just to meet the compliance for the grant, I've put in over 300. It didn't need a ton of renovations, to be fair, so I don't want to overplay that. But again, if any of the council members want to come see it, it's a 100 year old building. It's very difficult to make it our own, and we're obviously preserving it all. But I think anybody would be super impressed with what we've added to that building in terms of our own investment. To your point, the match.
Sure. So we're responsible if you use any monies that aren't part of the grant. The county's we've got to back that up, right? As a backstop. Is that correct?
Chris Cawley, can you answer that? I don't believe that's the case, but I'm not Chris Cawley.
You're correct on that. If there was anything incorrectly used on it, the taxing body would be the responsible party at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's what the indemnity agreement says.
Correct.
So we're responsible. So what's the county's exposure? What do we foresee the county's exposure? I mean, obviously, there's certain guidelines that the grant will allow you to spend money on. What would you possibly be spending money on that's not in the grant that we would be covered? We would be responsible for.
Well, that's what's pretty easy about this project right now, Walter. The project is just about over at this point in time, and the 3 levels of the 3 compliance bodies have already reviewed and approved everything. My office, the third-party engineering firm engaged by Office of the Budget, and the Office of the Budget have already reviewed and approved all these items, being the construction aspect of it, plus or minus $100,000, as well as the acquisition of it.
So you're saying there's no exposure to the county?
No, as of right now, as everything has been approved, I see no exposure to the county.
Well, what do we see as the exposure going down the road? Right now, you're saying we don't have any.
Well, it's already been approved,
I don't see
so
it.
it should be.
It's already been approved.
I don't see any from. That's correct. It's already been approved by Office of the Budget, so I don't see any issue at all.
And he's over the $1 million that he's trying to match, so it sounds to me like at this point there should be nothing that we're aware of, right?
That's correct.
And you know what? We don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not saying that nothing will happen, and I'm not saying something will happen, but we certainly are on the hook for anything that does happen. And we've seen time and time again where, particularly on the other corner, where we were put in exposure and we ended up paying money. for something that we were promised was not going to cost us anything. So, and in the fact that, you know, taxpayers are hurting right now, and we just told taxpayers that we're not going to give them a break on their taxes, I don't think it would be prudent for the county to now go out and say, hey, we're going to sign an indemnity agreement for a project just in case, because we're basically your guarantor. If you go over your items that are not part of the grant, the county's on the hook. We have to pay it. There's no going back to you and saying, hey, we're not paying it. We're stuck.
Well, I think
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to the redevelopment assistance capital program, as I said before, has the highest level of compliance out of all the programs out there. And what happened across the street did not involve a redevelopment of capital assistance program at all.
Okay.
I think the Sterling project did have redevelopment capital assistance program in it, if I remember correctly from back when I audited that. So I would just say that I'm not in favor of this project at all.
Any other council member? Okay, thank you. This will be on our voting session for 2 weeks hence. Thanks, Chris Jones and your counselor there, Mr. Cawley. And
Thank you.
We'll move forward for the next 2 weeks. Thank you for being on the call, and
thank
thank you for being patient this evening.
Okay.
Now, in light of Mr. Miller from the library system, we're going to talk about the proposed budget situation that Mr. Haas brought up in regards to the 2020 budget. Mr. Miller, if you're on the line, I think you are. I saw your icon earlier.
I am here.
Okay. You sent us some information, which we appreciate. Thank you very much for getting that together. Do you want to talk about your current budget situation? And then Mr. Haas can talk about his thoughts on that.
Certainly. I appreciate the opportunity to address council, and I do apologize for sending a pretty text-heavy document to you. Obviously, I got the information later than would have been. It would have been great to get you the information a little sooner, but in any case, I do understand the concern that it does appear that libraries have not been open to the public, and that's true. We were ordered to be closed by the Office of Commonwealth Libraries in March, along with most of the rest of the state. What we have been doing as a group, however, is to offer a lot of our services virtually. I did explain yesterday, we've done a lot of online and virtual programming. We have dedicated a good portion of our budgets to the purchase of e-books and e-materials. And I believe that I indicated already this year the number of times that the public has borrowed our e-books is already double, and I may actually think it's close to triple what it was for the entirety of last year. So the resources are being used, and obviously, as you know, I'm sure everyone knows, the online databases, resources are much more expensive. For example, an adult fiction book would cost the library $17, where publishers will charge us anywhere from $50 to $80 for the same book. And unlike the physical copy that we would use until it falls apart, basically, many publishers put limits on library borrowed ebooks. They may say we can have it for 2 years or 12 borrows or various other items. So there has been a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We've been meeting as a group. We have been trying to meet standards. We do have a good deal of regulations and standards and directives that we have to follow because we do accept state aid from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. And obviously, one of our challenges is that many of us are very dependent upon fundraising. I am personally responsible for directing the Oosterhout Free Library. Our line item for fundraising alone is over $300,000. So that is a large chunk of what we do. And I did detail what the impact of many of our libraries are facing because we aren't able to do the fundraising. So there is a great loss as far as that goes. Some of our libraries did have to furlough people. I myself have lost a few people to retirement and reductions of hours and will not be able to replace them. We are obviously ramping up our services. I think 8 of the 10 libraries in Luzerne County are now open for some form of in-person service. For example, here at the Oosterhout, we are taking appointments for computer use. Obviously, that was one of the largest drawbacks of what we were not able to do. We were not able to help people get online to apply for benefits, jobs, connect, use their email, and other items like that. We do have a specialist that is taking appointments to work one-on-one with people. She used to hold classes and help groups of people with computer issues, but we are doing things like that by appointment. And the same goes for faxes, copies, scans of documents. So as I said, we are trying our best to provide services in any way that we can. We have continued to employ people. We have been searching for other sources of revenue. The state library did tell us that we may be eligible for a small stipend for the purchase of PPE materials. It would be around $32,000 to $36,000 if they are successful. And unfortunately, as I said, we have 10 libraries in 17 locations, so that will not go very far for our libraries. And as I mentioned before, I did include quite a bit of information. I included the matrix that the Office of Commonwealth Libraries required us to follow, and the plan that we developed here at the Oosterhout Free Library, so that we can safely reopen to the public. And I think I will stop boring you with my dissertation now, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to do my best to answer them.
Okay, Mr. Haas first. Go ahead, Mr. Haas.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Miller, Rich, thanks for coming out. And I know it was very short notice and no apologies needed about you put together a great report. And I read it. I can certainly tell you spent a lot of time in it. And thank you for what you do. And all the librarians and directors and staff. You know, and when we spoke, and I said the same thing to the chairman, libraries are a great institution. You know, we fund it from the county. And Luzerne County spends $900,000 a year funding our county libraries. And I know we certainly donate and spend time as a family to a couple libraries here on the west side. That being said, you know, council, I just feel that libraries are a lot like school districts and municipalities. Some are just run better than others, but they all suffer from the same underfunded state mandates. And, you know, I look at this is an outcropping of the state shuts down our library systems. It's very hard for them to raise funds with their private fundraisers. And obviously services were nearly at a standstill for a few months. And if you read the report, if you had the chance to read Mr. Miller's report there, you could see what a lot of our libraries have done across the area were really impressive. You know, you guys took the ball and ran with it, and you kept things going online, tried to reach out to the different population groups in our county. But I look at this, I really believe that our financial support should really match the service delivery, and that's certainly been less. And you know, here in Luzerne County, we had furloughs, and we had to shut down some areas of our operations just to make ends meet. And we're looking at a really, really difficult budget year. So a budget season here coming in October. So that being said, I just don't want you to take this personally or anything like that. I'm just trying to examine everything across the county about how we can really save some funds. Again, not cripple our services, all those things we support, not just libraries, but all the services that we touch here as a county. And I think my big thing is a couple questions. What's the overall budget you think, Mr. Miller, for all 10 branches and the other 7 locations? You know, how much are we really funding here as a percentage with county taxpayer dollars?
I don't have the exact budget number from every library at hand. I know for us personally, we receive out of the allocation, we receive $180,000, and then the rest is distributed among the other libraries. And of course, for services, our budget to run the library system itself is $160,000 to $70,000. That includes the employment of a person that oversees our automated library system, the software, the hardware, and all the items that go into backing that up. I have to say, and I've said this before, and I don't mean this to be disparaging, but Luzerne County is always at the bottom or next to the bottom when it comes to local government income, and you know, that's just the reality of where we are. I understand, and I do appreciate that council has done their best to support their libraries over the years, but it is a significant portion of our operating budgets. And as I said, we totally understand the need to do reductions and cutbacks, and you know, we've cut back the purchasing of print materials in order to do more virtual items, and some of us have not hired or have actually laid off staff. So I do understand that. Hopefully that answered your question.
Well,
Mr.
I can
McGinley?
appreciate that, but overall, you know, you said we find about $180,000 in the Ouster House. What if we just say what's your overall expenses for the Ouster House? I'm just trying to glean how much we're really supporting.
The Oosterhout's budget is a little around $1.4 million. Depending on the year, it goes up or down a little bit. So our county allocation, and we do, as I said, we take the initial budget for running the library system from the allocation, and then what is left over, we run through a formula, and that is distributed to libraries. And the formula uses service measures to determine which libraries, you know, how much our libraries receive. So as I mentioned, the county portion is $180,000. Our state aid is around $400,000. Overall, our government income is around $600,000. We do rely, as I said, a lot on private fundraising, endowments, trust income, and other sources of revenue.
So the Luzerne County funds, at least your branch, at a little more than 10% of operations.
Correct.
And okay, that helps out. And I think and forgive me if you mentioned this to the council at large here when you just spoke, that you applied for CARES grants or for state aid, and they offered $32,000 for the entire system. Everything.
From what I understand, we will be getting the Office of Commonwealth Libraries is planning on distributing a portion of a grant that they have applied for from the federal government, and it will come to around $32,000, which is actually a reimbursement sort of situation. So in other words, we will have to spend the funds for PPE items initially, and then apply for reimbursement from the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's when we talked about it's an extremely small amount of number compared to your overall operation costs.
Sure.
And you know, just looking at with the whole system, when the state shuts down the libraries through the Commonwealth of Libraries, and you know, private enterprise, they had worker protection programs, and it just seems like the libraries weren't eligible for that. And now here we are 6 months later, and you know, we can't access those funds from the library standpoint, but the county dollars are still going to fund you know, operations that aren't maximum, they're not optimal. And I'm just wondering if there's any way, that we could come alongside you and lobby for some of those extra funds to fund those operations. It would help the library stand its feet. It would also help our bottom line as well. And I don't know if that's ever been discussed maybe by our management team, and it might not even be a possibility, but I think it's just worth the conversation.
Well, we can look into possibilities there. I think Ms. Houck had a question.
Yeah, I'll step
Yes.
aside. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
I did. And thank you for being with us, Mr. Miller. I really appreciate it. I will just say as an aside that I worked at the Oosterhout one summer when I was between college years many years ago, and it was a wonderful experience. I do not support cutting funding because, the library may have been closed, but their bills didn't stop coming. They still had to pay utilities, and they still had to maintain whatever services they could. And in my experience, the only people who are hurt when we cut funding to public libraries are the people who need them the most, who don't have other resources. And so I think that the very least that we can do for our residents who are most in need of informational services is to keep the library funded to the best of our own ability. And I would remind Mr. Haas that we did finish last year with a $3 million surplus. I think this is not something that we should really be looking at to cut funding to the library, especially having said how they are hurting. I think that this is something that's incumbent upon us to keep funding. So thank you again, Mr. Miller.
Other council people?
Thanks. If I could just, I did find on my desk here, I have a stack of papers, and I think it may refer to an earlier question for Mr. Haas. We took our annual reports. We have to file, of course, our annual report with the state that explains our services and our expenditures and income. And just to let you know, I have the percentages here. As a group, the county aid pays for 17% of library services. 29% comes from local government. 33% comes from fundraising and donations and endowments. And another 19% comes from state aid. And then we have a 1% federal grant.
Okay. Other council members?
Mr. McGinley, if I could ask, did you get any COVID money at all from the federal government at all? Was there any allocation by the state or federal government to help you guys out?
There was not a specific library grant from any of the COVID funds. The only one that I'm aware of is the one I mentioned that may be coming to help reimburse for some of the PPE. Now, some of our library did apply for the PPP loan. And were successful. Some applied and were not successful. I know a lot of us applied to local foundations and grant makers, and we really haven't been successful there either. A few of our libraries, I did note in the report, did receive PPP loans. I'll use Pittston as the example. I know they did get one, and they have an extensive list. They do a lot of fundraising, and even that was not enough to, unfortunately, keep everyone employed at the library.
I think that's, and I agree with Ms. Houck that the public libraries are a vital avenue for people who don't have the luxury to have a computer in their hand or don't have the luxury to be able to just access information as readily as some do. And I think the library is a real access tool for people. And I just think it's unfortunate that the government hasn't recognized the fact that you guys did have bills to continue on. You guys do have expenses to continue, and they should have put some provisions in them in the CARES Act or in some kind of state legislation to try and help you guys, because you're running on a shoestring budget to start with. As you just said, most of the funding you're getting most of your funding is coming from fundraising. And if we're in a COVID-19 situation where you can't go out and fundraise, that puts a big hole in your budget, unfortunately for you folks. So I think the government's really missed the mark in that particular area. So I appreciate what you do for sure. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair?
Who's that?
Chris.
Yes, Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Miller, for coming. I enjoyed your presentation, and I just wanted to agree with Walter and Linda. Well said. I don't want to prolong the situation, but I will never vote taking money from the library. Definitely.
Okay. Anyone else on council? I just have one comment, and then we'll let Mr. Miller go back. Thanks, Mr. Miller, for hanging on for several hours. I think council, at one point, Luzerne County had provided over $1 million in an allocation to the library system. But through some budget cuts that happened and things, that was brought down to the level that currently is at. In fact, Ms. Dobash was the one a few years ago who asked to add $25,000 to the allocation, and that was passed by council as part of our budget process. I personally believe that we should be supporting the libraries in a larger dollar number. I know that's very difficult in our budget, and I certainly agree that I don't believe we should be cutting the budget. I think they're facing very adverse conditions, particularly fundraising, and particularly the whole scenario as far as how they operate because of the COVID, and unfortunately they have little resources to turn to. So thank you for the discussion. Thank you for the information. And if you could send that annual report that has that budget breakdown, Mr. Miller, that would be probably helpful. I think people would appreciate that. If not, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you for your information.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Okay. We're going to go to number 2, discussion regarding the resolution requesting a multimodal transportation fund grant. And Mr. Pedri, did you submit that? Mr. Pedri? Mr. Pedri? Ms. Cronkemole?
Yeah, that was submitted through the county manager's
right.
office.
I see his icon now. Mr. Pedri? Are you on? Is your microphone unmuted? Mr. Pedri, is your microphone unmuted? Mr. Pedri, do you want to speak in this regard to number 2 for the intermodal grant? If not, if he gets back on or whatever, I saw his picture for a moment, so I don't know if he's having a connection problem.
It's the resolution is to submit the application for the multimodal transportation grant.
Okay.
It's a county grant application, and it's specifically for the construction of bike lanes and road improvements in and around Ransom Road in Dallas and Franklin Township.
So it's just
Mr. McGinley, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Mr. Pedri.
I got you. I think I was using those my earphones now, they aren't working. And Ramilla just nailed it. There's no match to the grant. This is a county road in Dallas and Franklin Township. Needs to be done. We've been. This will be state funding. We'll apply for the grant, no county match, and if we get it, we can fix the road.
Okay. So it's just to apply for the grant. We don't have any funds.
Correct. This would be for us to this would be for us to apply for the grant. If we are successful with it, it'll probably be in next year's construction season.
Okay.
Mr. McGinley?
Mr. Pedri.
Yeah, Mr. McGinley, it's Walter.
Right.
Is this construction for this bike lane? It's not going to go by Mr. Martin's house, is it? That's Ransom Road.
That I don't know, but I'll find out for you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hopefully it'll be on the other side.
That's a very good question. It is.
Hopefully it'll be on the other side of the street.
Yes.
Who is Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin is the settlement that we that you approved. I think at the last meeting. And
that's right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And I will find that out.
All right.
Specifically for you.
Any other questions? If not, we're going down to number 4. Discussion regarding the resolution transferring $210,000 from the account number as listed there under other income to county reserve fund. The account number is listed there is the reserve fund in our budget. I think Mr. Griffith, did you submit this?
Yes, and I think we talked about this at the last meeting, so I don't think it really needs a whole lot more discussion. That $210,000 was the money that came from the loan for the Market Street Square property, I believe, from the redevelopment authority when they purchased that property, and then they sold it, and so they reimbursed the county that $210,000. And if I'm correct on what I just surmised or summarized there, I'm trusting that Mr. Swetz will correct me if I was incorrect on my summary. But I think if that money was given to us and it's quote unquote found money, we could just put it in the reserve, and that way we'll have it in case something comes along that we have to have some quick funding somewhere along the line between now and the end of the year.
Okay. Any other comments or questions in that regard? One comment, I think, Mr. Griffith, I don't know if they sold the property officially. I think there was an agreement with Mr. Albert, and as a result of the extension of that agreement, I think that's where the $210,000 came from. I don't know if the property has been officially sold, but you are right. It's between the redevelopment authority and I think Mr. Albert.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only other question that I have, and I may be stepping over into the budget report area, but I was just curious if Mr. Swetz could allude to the fact that, when I'm looking through New World and I see other income, and I know that's a pretty broad category, and there's a lot of money dumped in there for things that, like when there's accidents and insurance companies pay us the money for an accident. When we paid for those claims, and I think I brought this up at the last meeting, when we pay a claim and we repaired the damage, so somebody hits a light pole and we repaired it in 2019, but we get the check from the insurance company in 2020, that's classified as quote unquote other income. What do we just carry that money over? Or is that money transferable somewhere where we can save it and use it for something else, or somebody on?
Let's keep that question and make sure we'll ask Mr. Swetz when he deals with his reports.
Okay, very good. Yep, thank you.
That way we can tie it together.
Sure.
All right. Moving down to number 5, discussion regarding a resolution requesting Luzerne County District Attorney to request the Office of Attorney General to conduct an investigation into the death of Shaheen Mackey at the Luzerne County Correctional Facilities.
Yeah, and Mr. McGinley, I asked the Office of Law to draft that resolution.
Yeah.
And when the resolution was drafted, I know Ramilda's very busy, so she probably didn't send it to me prior. But the language that's in there says it's at the discretion of the Attorney General or the District Attorney is problematic for me, because if it's at her discretion, we don't need the resolution. It makes no. We're actually trying to request that the DA do that. And I know Mr. Pedri said that she did invite the federal authorities to come in, and I appreciate all of that verbiage. But I would like to either see something in writing that said that she actually sent a letter to them and got a response from them, or that she will actually send a letter to the Attorney General to do that. Now, I certainly understand she's independent and she's an elected official and she can do whatever she wants. So that's why I was asking council to pass a resolution to request that she do that. Now, if she doesn't do it, we certainly have no ability to force her to do anything, but I think a council request may go a long way to initiate that investigation.
Mr. McGinley, I have something to say. It's Leanne.
Go ahead.
Okay, so a lot of the people that were sending email in, they were under the impression that if we have the Attorney General's office do an investigation, that it's going to be free, and that's not true. It would cost Luzerne County money. It would not be free. We'd have to pay for that. So I don't know where they're getting that impression, why that's being sent out there, but no matter what, if we had the Attorney General's office in, we'd have to pay them. And they only do a criminal investigation, so I'm not really sure exactly. I'm just asking Mr. Griffith, what is your intention of the investigation? Because again, as you said, and DA Stephanie Salavantis said in her own statement on August 13th that on our own initiative in 2018, we requested that the federal authorities review this case for possible federal violations. Since the public release of an excerpt of this surveillance video, we invited federal authorities to again review this case for federal violations. We will fully cooperate with any state or federal law enforcement agency that requests to review the facts and conclusions of our original investigation. So I guess, again, I'm just asking what you're looking for, because if it's criminal, that would be the Attorney General's office. That's what they do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that question, because I think that if that's all they're going to look at is criminal, I mean, that's fine. They can look at it from criminal. Maybe our district attorney missed something along the way. Not saying that happened, but it would certainly be a fresh set of eyes to look at something criminally. I don't know why they would charge us for an investigation, seeing as how we're funding the Attorney General's office. If you know that for a fact, I'd like to know how much that fee would be, that they would actually charge us to do an investigation, seeing as how it's a referred matter. I don't believe they charge us for, if the DA has a conflict and they refer it to the Attorney General, I don't believe the Attorney General charges us for that. But I could be, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I was asking for.
No, Mr. Griffith, the Lackawanna County, our sister county above us, had a issue with their prison, I believe it was last year, and they requested the Attorney General's office to come in and do an investigation, and they received an invoice for $800,000 for the investigation after it was completed.
Well, if that's in fact the case, I would, I'm not aware that the Attorney General actually would charge anybody to investigate. But if you say that's so, I have no reason to doubt that statement. Yeah,
that's the information.
Okay. And again, I think that's what most people are under the impression, as I was, they're thinking that they're an elected official and they're being paid by tax dollars. So why would they charge us? But again, you did the research to find that out, and if that would be the case, that would probably not be something we'd want the Attorney General to look at.
Okay.
Could I just jump in real quick here, Dave Pedri? On that Lackawanna County, matter, some of that was the Attorney General's office allegedly took things that were not part of the investigation, and Lackawanna County had to actually sue the Attorney General's office to get those things back, like computers from the Area Agency on Aging when they were investigating the prison and that kind of stuff. So some of that was a recovery of documents and those types of things as well. And I know that was a cost Lackawanna County put out there as well. I don't know the whole number. I don't know anything, but I know that part of it was that. So I just want to be clear for everybody.
Okay. Very good. Anything else on number 5? Going down to number 6, discussion regarding a resolution authorizing retention of outside counsel, conduct a review and evaluation of policies, standard operating procedures, and protocols, Luzerne County Correctional Facility.
Okay, this is Leanne.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the county manager, David Pedri, is asking for an independent review of the policies and procedures at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility. Mm-hmm. So he's not asking for a criminal investigation. The law firm Troutman Pepper is only going to do a review, again, of policies and procedures. So, Mr. Pedri, you did say, and I know I read this in the paper, but you did say that the Mackey case inspired a review of procedures at the jail. Revised procedures based on that review include more medical screenings or thorough medical screenings, increased training for corrections officers in recognizing medical episodes, and enhanced reporting protocols. So 2 years ago, there were already changes to policies and procedures. So why would you ask us to spend this money now? Why should we spend $75,000 now after it was already done 2 years ago? And honestly, I was going to say, but to the public, what the newspaper stated is misleading. It said that council will decide whether or not to hire a prominent law firm to investigate the death of Shaheen Mackey, and that David Pedri's proposal to hire an outside law firm is to do a thorough review of the Mackey case. So this leads the people to believe that there is more to be expected from this law firm rather than what they would be hired to do, which is only a review of policies and procedures, not a criminal investigation. And here's something I know that no one heard about, and I would love to see this in the newspaper. The Department of Corrections does state inspections of all county prisons. They did one of Luzerne County Correctional Facility last summer, and they received 100% compliance in every phase of the policies and procedures that were reviewed. The Department of Corrections complimented the staff and supervisors for the professionalism and how they treated their inmates. And I believe Prison Director Mark Rakovich is on the call. I don't know if the director would be able to speak now, but he could probably tell us what the state requires in those the inspections.
Manager Pedro, you had a comment, and then we'll ask Mr. Rakovich.
Sure. And Ms. McDermott, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were finished. I apologize.
No problem.
Yes, listen, great question. Here's the reason why. 2018, obviously this incident happens. It's a major incident. Mark Rakovich, his team steps in. We look at all policies and procedures, and those policies and procedures did change as outlined in those papers. And I stand by those comments, and those comments are correct. Obviously, with everything that occurs here, I mean, people are asking for, the public is asking for what is going on, what happened, everything along those lines. So this is another opportunity for the county to say, here's everything that we have, and it's always an opportunity to grow. Is there an opportunity for us to grow? Is there an opportunity for us to get better? Some of the things that we changed in 2018 to 2020, I'm sure we've made a lot of changes that I think have been for the better there, and that is also reflected in the Department of Corrections. The reason why I'm not asking for the independent review by the Department of Corrections is because the Department of Corrections already does that, and you referenced that already. So they've already cleared us in 2018. They've already cleared us in 2019. 2020, we just got that 100% compliance rate that you referred to. They already did all those things. So what I'm asking for is somebody else to come in and say, hey, listen, what's going on? Or is this an opportunity for us to learn, to get better, to understand what truly happened here, and then go forward? I want to be very clear. This is not a criminal investigation. Only the district attorney's office has the right to have a criminal investigation. That's the district attorney's office and her right and her right alone. I have never said that we want to do anything with a criminal investigation. That is not my intention. I've never said that. I don't stand by that in any way, shape, or form. That's her call. She handles that as she sees fit. But we can control what we control, and we control policies and procedures. We control day-to-day operations at the Luzerne County Prison and doing it better. When we had the suicides that occurred, unfortunately, a couple years ago, we brought in outside vendors. We reviewed everything. We looked at the things, and we made certain changes that are now reflected in the medical RFP. We learned, we got better. So this is an opportunity for us to take an outside law firm to say, hey, listen, take the Shaheen Mackey case from start to bottom. Go from the time this man came in to the time at the end, and we'll watch the entire process. What worked, what didn't work, what could we change? This could have worked. I want to make sure that our corrections officers have all of the tools in place to make sure that they have the tools necessary in order to deal with whatever situation that occurs. Mark Rakovich and his team have changed for the better since he came in. I mean, geez, he came in on one of the worst days in Luzerne County history, the death of Christopher Moles in 2016. And, from his time to the present, he's come a long way. And I think that the prison has come a long way as well. But this investigation from an outside law firm, from an independent outside law firm that will say, this is what's working, this is what isn't working. I think it's an opportunity for us to learn. And it's an opportunity for us to provide to the public that level of transparency that council is always talking about, to saying, hey, listen, here's a report. Here's what happened. Here's what's going on. Here's how we got better. I think all of those things could be made public and move from there.
So what I'm hearing you say is we have made adjustments. We have revised things. We are doing a better job. We are moving in the right direction. Why do we have to hire a firm for at least $75,000? And in 2018,
excuse me, I just want to be clear that that number is not an exact number. They are going to bill us on an hourly rate at a discount. The discount that they're suggesting has to be accepted by their firm. We will probably get some response this week, whether their reduction in their hourly rate is accepted. The $75,000 is not a number that is reflective in the agreement.
Yeah, and I understand. So it could be less, it could be more, but still, it's a lot of money. And again, you know, the federal authorities are reviewing it now. They reviewed it back in 2018. They're reviewing it now. So my question is, why do we spend the money if we are still waiting for an answer from that in this particular moment? You know, maybe down the road we can certainly revisit this, but I would like to wait and see what happens with the federal investigation. And again, you know, the Department of Corrections, like you said, Mr. Rakovich, you know, had a lot of obstacles to overcome. They're doing a great job. They're going in the right direction, but nobody ever hears the good things they're doing. And I know this is just the timing of everything is bad, and we certainly don't want to ever downplay what happened with Mr. Mackey. But the prison did make changes and is in the process of making things better. And the Department of Corrections, you know, does review that. They do their inspections of county prisons.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. McDermott, you're correct on all of those things.
Okay, Mr. Pedro, let Mr. Rakovich.
I apologize. Well,
Mr. Rakovich,
Mr. Rakovich.
Yes, I am on the line.
Yeah. Do you have comments or something you want to share with us?
The comment would simply be that our last inspection that we did have from the Department of Corrections occurred in August of 2019. We did receive 100% compliance with the provisions of Title 37, Chapter 95, which goes through, you know, all the facets of corrections from when we bring them in, from our commitment to our discharge policy and everything in between. Is it an in-depth look at everything that's done in the prison? Probably not as in-depth as we would get with the evaluation that Mr. Pedri is talking about.
Okay. Anybody else with comments?
Yeah, I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Roth.
Yeah, I just don't support this, and I'll tell you why. Dave, this sounds like leadership, your proposal there, but it's exactly the opposite. You know, 2 years ago when this tragedy happened, along with other deaths also happened, it was a very terrible year for our prison system. And I specifically asked what policies were in place, and you laid it out. And I said that needs to be explained to the public, because there is a lot of confusion, a lot of ignorance out there about what's going on, especially in light now, 2 years later, of these national tragedies that we've going across our land. And, you know, here we're going to put our credibility on the line here for Romelda said, maybe not 75,000, maybe a lot more than that. And as far as I'm concerned, there are protocols in place, just like Mr. Rakovich just said, that show that there have been corrections, that, you know, nobody ever wants to see a tragedy. We changed up providers for our intake system at that year, and now we've got to go through that again, that process again with the new vendor for that. But something like this, you know, we're playing politics with this, and this is not a time for politics, and it upsets me very much because, you know, we just had, you know, a couple council members put you on the spot last meeting for a vote of no confidence, of which I supported you, because I think you do a pretty credible job in many areas. But don't take this as a way to, you know, prove them wrong. That, oh yeah, we're just going to uncover everything, and it's been uncovered. The district attorney, she came in, she did her investigation for the criminal aspect. You guys and your professional staff, and Mr. Rakovich, and you've taken a look at that. So please, you know, we've got to have cooler heads here. All lives matter here in our prisons. And I just hope that cooler heads will prevail during these very difficult times.
Anyone else?
Mr. McGinley.
Go ahead.
It's Sheila. And I think that one of our responsibilities is the public. You heard those emails, you read those emails to all of us read them during the week on our own last 2 weeks since the meeting and before the meeting. They're crying for something related to Mr. Mackey. We have to be able, I mean, yes, Stephanie did her job, and I'm sure she did an appropriate job, but somebody has to, in some way, honor the public's request for a study, an in-depth, what happened. I don't know if the law firm and coming up with, here, this is the protocol, this is how we're making it better. I don't know if that's enough to satisfy them. We've seen these cases out in, national news. Would they have actually charged the officers in George Floyd's case if there hadn't been a stink made? Would they have charged, well, we don't know if they're going to charge the gentleman today that they shot 7 times at point blank range in the back. But the people are making a statement. I'm not talking about the riots out there. I don't think that we have to think about that. I think we just owe them some kind of response. And Harry, maybe what you're saying, maybe we never clarified it with them 2 years ago, what we were doing. But somebody has to make some statement to the public, I think.
I agree with that.
They're asking.
100%, Sheila, you're 100% right on that. So I think management should do that, as I called for that at that time and over the past couple months.
The only thing is, Harry, I don't think management will be enough to satisfy. They already look at the government here as an old boys network. For some reason, they think David is pulling all the strings, which is not correct. They think that the prison the prison guards were at fault, and therefore the county managers at fault. I don't know. We have to do something. And I don't know if it's hiring this firm, which might be one step in that direction. And to a certain extent, that's money worth it if it's going to help us with the public.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Sneed.
If we go ahead with this, I have a few questions. First of all, how was this firm selected, and what are their qualifications and background?
Okay.
I'm gonna turn that over to Ms. Courtdale.
I can speak to that because I was involved in that. Troutman Pepper has handled numerous high-profile and significant investigations for state and local government agencies, educational institutions, and large public and private companies. They have an investigation practice group, and that group typically handles high-profile investigations. And Troutman Pepper lawyers are routinely called upon to provide recommendations about how to improve controls, policies, and procedures, and assessing responsibility. The particular investigation practice group includes numerous former prosecutors who have served the United States Attorney's Office around the country. This is a national law firm. The United States Department of Justice, District Attorney's Office throughout the country, and other state and federal law enforcement agencies. Most recently, Troutman Pepper lawyers have represented a state law enforcement agency in connection with a shooting by a law enforcement officer here in Pennsylvania. They represented a state agency in connection with claims that a high-ranking elected official had engaged in misconduct and misappropriated state resources. They have represented state educational institutions in conducting lengthy investigations into cheating by various teachers and administrators. They've conducted investigations on behalf of colleges involving allegations that officials of the college had falsified financial records and defrauded the institution, the IRS, and bondholders. And they've done investigations of athletic programs of major state universities into allegations that an employee of the university had abused minors on the university's campus, and administrators had covered that abuse. In particular, the attorney who will be leading the investigation is attorney Michael H. Reed. He's senior counsel at Troutman Pepper. He's practiced law for 48 years. He's the former president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association and serves as a trustee of Temple University and is a fellow at the Pepper Center for Public Service, which assists communities in solving significant community problems. And since 2012, he has served as chair of the Philadelphia Board of Ethics and has been active in the American Bar Association as a member of the American Law Institute. His team will consist of a Troutman Pepper partner, Richard J. Zach, who served as Assistant United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania from 1999 to 2011. Mr. Zach was the Deputy Chief of the office's Criminal Division and the Chief of the Fraud Section. Another member would be another partner, Kristen Tuttle, who's a former Assistant District Attorney in Philadelphia before joining Troutman Pepper, and there is a senior associate named Thomas Cordova, who will also be part of that team. So they're extraordinarily qualified. They've done these investigations. They have a stellar and impeccable reputation, not only in the state of Pennsylvania, but across the country.
Mr. Snee, that answer your question?
No, I have a few other questions.
Go ahead.
Solicitor Crocomont, if you could get me this information and the other council members, how many prisons did they actually evaluate, and what counties were they in?
I can get you the information.
And it was stated that they're coming in for policy and procedures. What policy and procedures, when they were called into these prisons, did they make a correction at, and how did they work out in the long run?
I'll get you that information.
You have any other questions, Mr. Snee?
That's it.
Okay. Other people with questions?
Mr. McGinley, Sheila again.
Yeah,
But
go
I
ahead.
just want to, I think getting something like this is very important. And also, I would think that possibly just they would be talking to these lawyers, our people would be talking to the lawyer counsel, our solicitors, our county manager, and we would either be able to tell clearly or in some way know if we should have gone, on, if we should have looked at the criminality a little bit more. Not to second guess Stephanie at this point, there may be federal crimes. There may be totally different things that she would look for. But I think we would be able to tell or be able to inquire from them, is there something else we should do?
One of the investigation committee. Yeah, where is that?
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. McGinley, it's Walter again.
Go ahead.
Leanne stated that there was a federal investigation ongoing. Does she know that for certain?
I don't know. You have to have, Ms. McDermott, did you hear Walter's question?
Yes, Stephanie did state that she has let me see if I could pull it up here. She said that there is a federal investigation going on now. She cannot elaborate on it, but there is.
Okay, well, was that in a
authority.
Was that in a newspaper article somewhere, or is that information that
Yes.
you have?
It was, no, it was in the newspaper article.
Okay, so
Let me just see. I'm trying to pull up.
okay.
She again asked for, this was in the Citizen's Voice yesterday, Monday, August 24th. So she asked for federal authorities to review the case. That was what she said. So.
Yeah, but we don't know if they're actually investigating. Right? She asked, but we don't know for sure that they're doing it.
I would assume, but then I'm incorrect maybe, but it says she asked federal authorities to review the Mackey case for possible federal violations over which she had no jurisdiction in 2018.
Right.
After the release of the jail surveillance video, she again asked federal authorities to review the case. And again, that was just in the paper yesterday.
Yeah, and I would assume the same as you, but I, again, don't want to assume anything regarding this matter. I think if the federal investigators are actually investigating, then that's a horse of a different race. Totally. I mean, I would like to get that confirmation from somebody to say that, yes, they are actually looking into it, because I know she asked them to, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are. So that's my first concern. But my second concern is, when we talk about hiring somebody outside to come in and take a look at policy and procedure, we have a manager that's making $140,000 round numbers, a ordinance making $80,000 round numbers. Between the two of them, do we really need to have somebody come in and do an investigation into policy and procedure? Do we need to really spend another $75,000 doing something that we're paying a manager and a warden to be able to do? And I understand, and the other problem I have with this whole thing is, how does this appear when the manager is the one picking the person who's looking at the policy and procedure for his department? This is the same problem I had with budget and finance, hiring somebody to go out within their own confines to say, hey, take a look at our budget and finance department and tell us what we're doing wrong. You don't investigate people within your own self. That's just not the way it's done. I don't believe. I think if there's going to be an investigation and you're going to use Section 209B of a county council section of the charter, that's a county council investigation done by county council, not by the manager who says, oh, we found a law firm who we picked who can investigate policy and procedure and come back with a finding. Because we've had that done by Bob Lawton, and we never saw the report for that one. The public never saw that report. We paid for that, but we never saw it. We saw Marissa Crispell's report. The public never saw that one. We had a report given for the suicides. The public never saw that one. So all these reports and studies and all this stuff that's being done at that jail have been done in the past, and the public has never gotten single document one for any of them. So what makes them think now that we're going to have another investigation by another firm, some hired gun out of Philadelphia, who comes with high regards and probably a very high price tag, that we're going to get a report and the public's going to see it either? If they come back and they say that there was certain individuals at the jail that did something wrong, violated policy, is that going to be released to the public? Probably not. Will we hide behind personnel? Probably so, as we always do. So that is not going to give accountability to this issue. Everybody on council can see what needs to be done here. Either the manager needs to do his due diligence and fix the policies at the jail, or we need to do the investigation ourselves as a council. We need to get a committee together to do the investigation. It's not appropriate for the manager to hire somebody outside of his area and say, oh, we'll get this company to come in and do it for us. How transparent do you think that's going to be? What do you think the people are going to think when he's hiring the person looking at his department? It just doesn't pass the sniff test. And I'm not saying that they would do anything, that Troutman Pepper would do anything not appropriate or anything of that nature. All I'm saying is, if we want a truly unbiased investigation, council needs to do it themselves. That's why we have that provision in our charter. So when the manager's doing something or there's questions about his procedures or his policies, we can do it ourselves. And that way we hold the manager accountable and his division heads. That's our job. So instead of having the manager do it, we need to do it. as a council with a committee and set that up. That's why I brought the other resolution up, because I don't think it's appropriate, number one, for the manager to bring anything to this council. He's the executive branch. It's getting to the point now where there is no more legislative branch. It's all executive branch. He brings stuff, we say, yeah, okay, and it's all good. No, we're supposed to do stuff on our own. That's why we're supposed to be co-equal separate branches of government. If we see there's a problem, we need to fix it. And that's what the people of the county expect us to do as their elected officials. And unfortunately, we're not getting that. We're not getting that. And we're not going to get it at a $75,000 price tag by somebody who's hired by the manager to investigate the manager and his people in the jail. I don't think that's going to be an unbiased or a complete report. And I just feel that we need to spend the proper money in the proper places and stop trying to cover stuff up and being political. No, this isn't about political. This is about what the public is outcrying for, and it needs to be fixed. And it needs to be fixed sooner rather than later.
Walter, do you think we're qualified to do that? To look and be unbiased and know, review all the correctional?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do think we're qualified.
Nobody has that experience.
Well,
Walter.
I beg to differ with
Nobody
Mr.
does.
I beg to differ with Mr.
Nobody
Green.
does.
All right.
Now,
It's hard to resume, the guy for 28 years.
listen,
Okay.
we are elected by the people to do a job for the people. We should do our job.
We have no experience doing what you just said.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
They don't want answers. They don't
and
want
the-
answers from council members.
And the attorneys are going to give us answers, right? Attorneys are investigating attorneys. Right. I got you.
I don't think the attorneys are investigating attorneys. But, a little bit about that. I believe this firm is a highly reputable firm, and certainly I don't believe they would want their reputation questioned by any of their procedures, investigations, whatever it might be. When you look at the information on their firm, which I did on the web page the other day, it's quite outstanding. And as far as evaluation review, that's something I think we should be doing on an annual basis. And I think there are people out there who have that kind of expertise and background. I don't believe, I know myself for sure does not have that kind of expertise or background, but I certainly would appreciate having someone who has that kind of background to be providing that information for us.
So why doesn't council go out and get an attorney then to do it? A
Well,
law firm.
you can choose to bring that up if you wish, but
Well, no, I'm asking. If
you could choose to bring it up if you wish, Mr. Griffith. That's obviously something that.
Why is the manager bringing information to us using our clause in the contract in the charter? That's not what.
Oh, I don't think he's using our clause in the charter. I don't think that
he's using 209B.
I don't believe that's part of this review.
209B says the county council can bring investigations.
Right.
It doesn't
And
say
it's
the
not-
manager.
It's not county
Not
council.
investigation. It's a review.
Okay.
It's a review.
Yeah, review, audits, and investigations. Yes, that's exactly what it says. Well, I won't support it because I won't support it.
8 minutes after 10. And I think we have an obligation to have the public speak, so we have to set some time aside there.
Mr. McGinley, I'd like to just state a couple things. I was reviewing the attorneys on the internet, doing my own personal research, and I noticed like one of the attorneys on there has only been an attorney for a little bit more than a year, maybe getting close to 2 years, which was one of the associates. I don't know if he really has that type of experience to investigate our county. I mean, he can participate in the process, but he's only been an attorney for less than 2 years. Regarding Mr. Reed, it seems like a lot of his concentration was in bankruptcy, and a lot of their background seems to be in the financial sector, more so than maybe in a criminal sector, more white collar type of issues versus criminal. So we're looking at civil versus more of the criminal matter. So, most attorneys know that you concentrate in a particular area, and I wouldn't support, paying $75,000 for this type of firm. When I think we have almost 320,000 residents in our county, we probably could do this on our own for a lot less cost, maybe next to free. And I think there are people that can be unbiased. And quite honestly, you state, or the management states, that they've done a lot of policy and procedure changes. I have to echo some of Harry's sentiments. We'd like to see those in writing. What has changed over there, compared to the past? I think, we're just throwing away $75,000 to a Philadelphia law firm.
And Mr. McGinley, real quick, I wanted to ask the question regarding this matter. When council was approached to approve the contract for Correct Care, we were never told that they were a party to that lawsuit. And I want to know why that was never told to council when we approved that contract. We were never told that Correct Care was a part of that contract by either the warden or the manager. Yet council approved another contract with the same company that's now listed in a lawsuit against Mr. Mackey. Why were we not told that by the management?
Well, obviously, I have no answer for that part of it.
Well, maybe Mr. Rikovich can give us that, because he was the one that presented the Correct Care Well Path contract to council in March and never mentioned it.
All right, okay.
What's the answer?
Ms. Rikovich, could you apply to supply that information to us?
As a matter of fact, Mr. Griffiths, you had asked about their lawsuits during the presentation of it, and you did know that they were a member that had lawsuits.
No, Mr. Rikovich, I asked about numerous lawsuits that they had, but I didn't. Wait, I want to correct
Mr. Griffith,
his misstatement. He's making a misstatement.
He has the floor, and you may speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Rikovich.
It's not like we know every lawsuit that they were in. At that time, I wasn't aware that they were part of a lawsuit by the Mackey family. I was aware Luzerne County was being sued, but our medical provider, I was unaware of. It was not possibly known to us at that time.
Well, they filed a lawsuit. Sorry. Okay. Well, they filed the lawsuit in 2019, so I would have thought that you would have known. They were listed on the lawsuit with the county. And I did state about lawsuits. That's why I voted no against them, was because they have hundreds of lawsuits. That's what I said at the meeting, was Correct Care is not a good company because they have hundreds of lawsuits. Yet we had them as the vendor, and we got rid of them, and we hired Wexford, and then we turned around and hired them back. And we did not know that they were named in a lawsuit with the county. We did not. You never said anything, and neither did the manager. And they approved the contract with a company.
These companies,
that's not true. Once again, we're saying false statements now.
What's false about it, Mr. Pedri?
All right, enough.
No, I'm not going to get into it.
Of course you're not, because I'm correct.
Enough right now, please. We've had a lot of discussion there, and there's some things that have to be found out at this point. So let's remember that it's now 10:15, and we do have to public comment, and we do have some other information we have to get through tonight. Let's move to the council committees. If you have no report, just indicate that so we can move along and hopefully get through all the committee reports. So Mr. Vo, Act 13.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Mr. Perry?
Sorry, I muted you. Yes, we're meeting September 24th.
September 24th?
Yes.
And that's on the calendar.
Yes.
Budget and Finance and Audit. We met it again today. We had a meeting last week. We interviewed 4 firms. We met today, and we'll be forwarding to council for the council's information for next work session, the recommendation from that committee, and we'll be forwarding whatever information is necessary to the council, and that will be in the work session 2 weeks hence. Mr. Haas?
Nothing to report for Legislative Committee, Mr. Chair. However, I'll remind all of the representatives to the County Commissioner Association of Pennsylvania that in light of their online annual conference, there is the annual resolutions voting ballot. It was just online yesterday. If you check your email from August 24th, click on it, and you have the members. I think there are 5 of us all together offhand. There's a ballot. It's just a simple yes, no for each plank in the overall platform for counties across Pennsylvania. So members, take a look at that. You have till September 3rd to fill that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howe, strategic initiatives?
Oh, you missed real estate.
Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. Ms. McDermott, you're first. Sorry.
Okay. Regarding the Juvenile Detention Center, we're reviewing the appraisal that was completed in March of 2017, and we're going to walk through the facility next week to see what kind of condition it is and try to go ahead and see if we can get that on the market and sell it. And regarding the sale in October, we're going to see if that can actually be a virtual sale, and if not, try to come up with a different way to be able to do that sale.
Okay. Sorry about
no problem.
Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe? Maybe your microphone might be muted. I don't see her icon up there either. Maybe she might be having connection problems also. Let's go down to blighted properties, Mr. Haas.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Vogt, County Cares?
Yes. Next meeting is September 1st at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Riverfront Parks, there was no information coming forward, and same for the Plains Township TIF. Since Ms. Hawk is not on the line, she had asked for 9A and 9B, and I think some of that information was forwarded to council today. After I talked to Ms. Hawk, we'll put that back on our work session a few weeks hence. We talked about 10 has been taken off the agenda. And then we have a communication from Mr. Griffith in regards to the Luzerne County Correctional Facility Investigation Committee. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Griffith.
Well, I'm not going to belabor the point because of the late hour. I think we beat this horse pretty heavily. I quite honestly believe that we should use Section 209B. I think we should create a Luzerne County Correctional Facility Investigative Committee and let them weed through the process of what's going on at the jail over there. And the proposal is to have 3 citizens on there, or 3 council members, 3 citizens, and the controller on that committee to do an in-depth look at policy and procedure and see if there's any corrections we could make or shortfalls that might have been there that we could somehow correct. And I think that's the duty of council to do that. And like I said, I'll leave it at that, only because I think we've discussed this pretty heavily. I think that's the right way to go, to appear open and transparent to the people of this county.
Okay, anyone else with comments in that regard?
Yes.
Kendra?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Kendra first, and
okay.
Leanne after that, please.
Sorry, Leanne, I'll be quick.
No problem.
So my first, which we kind of touched on, so I don't want to bring it up and spend too much time on it again, is just about how, 3 members of the public, 3 members of council, the controller. First off, are we qualified to conduct an investigation? So that's my first question. And my second question is, how does that work with the charter? I don't believe that we could create a committee that has more power than council itself. I don't know if I'm exactly right on that, but if anybody wants to weigh in on how we can give a committee more power than council actually has, I'm unclear on that part.
So, I wanted to say, I do somewhat agree with Mr. Griffith in regards to having a committee to oversee the prison, to see how money is being spent for the taxpayers, review training, and to make sure that the staff in prison are being run correctly. What I don't agree with is the makeup of the committee, which, Kendra just referred to there. We would need people on there that have experience working with the prison. For example, the sheriff, president, judge, council, maybe a council member, and residents qualified in corrections. However, this would require a change to the charter, which would have to go on the ballot for the residents of Luzerne County to vote on. So council would have to discuss if this is what we would want to consider. And I would like to reach out to other home rule counties to see if they have that kind of structure. Also, I just want to state a fact that myself and council members Kendra Radel, Matthew Vogt, Tim McGinley, and Linda Houck have all visited the prison. We are the only members of council that have ever visited the prison. So
I
if you
visited the
want to
prison,
be,
Harry.
I visit the prison too.
did you? Okay, well
Yes.
then I got misinformation and I apologize. But that's what I was told, so I do apologize for that. So, in order to be able to, even you should step into prison to have any kind of, say on the committee.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr.
If
McGinley,
not,
just
like I
just
said,
a-
we had a lot of discussion.
Yep.
And I think everybody has their position. We'll address it as we move forward. Okay?
So we'll put it on the agenda for next week?
We'll put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay. Public comment, please?
How about budget report? Are we gonna get one of those or no?
Yeah, we are. Mrs. Sweat, I'm sorry we kept you so long, but, and we're looking forward to.
I wouldn't have said anything. If Mr.
I know,
Griffith let it go,
I
I
know,
would have been
I know.
fine. He
I
could have
know.
emailed me questions. He could have called it a night, but it's all right. I will be
Get
very
through this.
brief. I'll answer Mr. Griffith's questions. I'll
Good.
give a high level, and then again, whatever I don't have the answer to, I can answer in emails. I think his first question was on that other income. Yes, a lot of times that is from the prior year. So you'd have something like when the county had a lot of deficit audits, if something was actually spent at that time, we'd show the expense. If it was within 4 or 6 months, and we can put it back to that year. So if in a 2017, April timeframe, we can put it in the 2016 audit. But if we get the money in 2019, we obviously can't do anything but put it in the reserve fund. So, I mean, those are the things that we only could put things to the prior year up until the audit report's finished. So after that point, it's an expense in 1 year, and then the revenue could be the next year or 2 or 3 years down the road. And on his point about other income with that 200,000, I don't like the term found money, but I agree with the concept. So I have no issue with that going to the reserve in a future meeting.
Okay. Go to your report.
Sure. So on the budget report, we're at 80% as of July for revenues, 65% for expenses. We have started our budget meetings. Besides starting the 2021 budget prep, also looking at 2020, what we spent. So you'll see in the August reports and going forward, because it's happening right now, we're looking at revenues and where we aren't hitting revenues because a building was closed or some of the things we talked about before with the library. So we're going through revenues. We're going to see where we're not going to meet. We're going to show where we're making that up in the budget, and we'll be working on the CARES money as well. So that's my 2-minute, 40,000 foot level presentation.
All right, questions for Mr. Sweats?
Okay, Mr. Sweats, the income for the prison under 44510, there's an income of 11,851. They're over budget on income by other income by 489%, and it's because of a performance bond from Benjamin Foods. Could you allude to that as to what that is?
I remember seeing the check. I believe Benjamin Foods went bankrupt and we got something, but let me grab all the information. I'll email all of council.
Okay.
They were one of the providers for the prison. I don't know if it was a commissary, but let me get all the information.
Sure. And then at 43, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Walter, I can answer that. I have some information on that.
Okay.
Benjamin, that one contractor, it was Mark Zokoski informed me that it was a rebate we got back from not a violation of the contract, but the pricing that they promised at one time they couldn't provide. So with the contract, they had to pay the difference, and that was the difference.
Okay. All right. And the other question is, and you answered that one about the insurance. There was like $21,000 in the one account. It's showing 273%. But one of the things that I keep bringing up, and I brought up before I was elected to council, is we're not getting all of the funds in the budget report, and I would wish that we could get that in the future so we could see the funds after the 100 account, like 210, 205, the 900 account. All of those accounts we need to see, because I was looking at the 911 account and the overtime is horrendous. And I know I'm sure you and Mr. Pedri are aware, but they transferred $200,000 into overtime because they're way over on overtime. So we don't get to see that information because we don't see those funds. So could you explain the issue with the overtime? They're like spending like $61,000 a month over there in overtime.
My understanding was that it had to do with vacancies and some of the facts that with the building, there is times where people have to stay consecutive shifts. From talking to Mr. Rosenkrantz, I can confirm that. Okay. The reason we only give the Hunter Fund report is, we can do something maybe quarterly, but you get 60 pages on just the general fund. I understand some of these other funds don't have that detail, but you'd be looking at 200 pages in your packet just on report. So I know you brought it up. I don't have a problem doing it. Maybe not every month. Whatever the majority wants, I'm willing to do. But okay. I'll dig in a little more on Mr. Rosenkrantz, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, I can look in New World. That's fine. That's, I could get that information. I just thought for other council members, they're not able to get that information. Maybe it'd be helpful for them. So that's all I have. The rest of the stuff is pretty small stuff. I could send it to you in an email, Brian, if you don't mind.
No, I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment.
Mr. McGinley.
Go ahead.
This is Mr. Rabo.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'll be brief since it's a late hour. I was very troubled last week. It's been troubling me since last week, since the Redevelopment Authority meeting, that there was, since the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Riley was asked by the chairman to conduct the meeting, the entire meeting of the Redevelopment Authority and the Rail Corporation meeting. Now, the chairman and the vice chairman were present the entire time, and the solicitor was there and didn't say anything. Now, I thought that was very improper. I don't know about the validity of the meeting, since a lot of the voting matters were conducted and were done by the board, and the meeting was completely conducted by the executive director. And the chairman and vice chairman were present. That would be like you yourself, Mr. Chairman, asking the county manager to conduct tonight's meeting, and you participating in the entire meeting and the vice chair participating in the entire meeting the entire time. So and the solicitor is not saying anything. So, you already have Mr. Riley, who's the executive director, now being the ad hoc chairman of the Redevelopment Authority for last week's meeting. And he's also the community development director for Luzerne County. So he's the financing arm and the working arm of all things redevelopment. So he's like, why do you need any board members of the Redevelopment Authority then at this point? So I find that very troubling, because the first time I was on the board, at least the board members were willing to conduct the meeting. Now it's like nobody wants to conduct a meeting. So I would like to, ask you, Mr. Chairman, to ask the Authorities, Boards, and Commissions Committee to, look into, as far as, seeing about any appointments coming up, because of the fact that board members are not willing to conduct the meeting, and they're just, abdicating their roles, and they just don't want to do anything. So that's I'm just very troubled by this. So I think you need to look into this. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Mr. Manta?
Yes,
Mr. Manta.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. My take on this with the prison is, I think that the taxpayers have been burdened enough with money that they're taking from the budget. and taxpayers, it's on the taxpayers' back for that 75,000, or like Ms. Kokomo said, they don't know the amount. But don't you think that in the local area, we have enough intelligent people and enough people that have stamina? All right, you could look at a military base. They have civilians coming on military bases and judging the capability of a military base, the barracks in a military base, the policies and procedures of military base. They have civilian people doing that. So I think that maybe that might be a good idea to get an objective view. And like Cookie Lady said, you know, we're not experts, but we have human instincts that we can sense or we can see if they're not giving the people enough food, or they're not treating the people right. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do this stuff. Yeah, if all these attorneys that you feel that you want to hire are in criminal justice and have law degrees defending a person in the criminal justice system or in the prison system, then I could say, yeah, go right ahead. But if they're, like Steve Irvin said, they're not subject matter experts, and neither are the people. If we elect a group of people to look at that board and look at the situation over there, I think we have enough people in the valley that are smart enough to come up with a good answer and find out who's culpable of this incident and who should be responsible for this incident.
Mr. Mantha, thank you.
Thank you.
Other members of the public?
Mr.
Jason
McGinley?
Carr, Jason
Yes.
Carr, Sailorsburg, Pennsylvania. I just
somebody
wanted
else before you.
No,
Oh,
Mr.
my
McGinley.
gosh.
Mr. McGinley, it's Romilda Crocomo.
Okay.
I'll wait till after
All right,
Mr.
Carr,
Carr
you have the
speaks.
floor.
Thank you so much. I think when you look at the problems at the 911 center, problems at the election bureau, problems at the prison, problems with the Office of Law, I think Mr. Pedri should look at a national stage of hiring people instead of making decisions based upon who or what friends are available at the time to fill those positions. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of the public?
Brian Shiner.
Go ahead, Mr. Shiner.
Yes, Mr. Sweats, I think your report was more of a 1 mile view, and it probably would fit on less than one page this time. Ms. McDermott, I appreciate your input on the articles that were in the newspaper. Quite honestly, I was going to read them in myself. But since Home Rule started, there have been at least 4 studies done on the prison, probably more. Also, the last investigation that was done, which was in reference to the Marissa Crispell incident, we were told one price and told we'd get a refund of any unused money, and it ended up being more than double the price. So now to start out with a law firm at $75,000 just doesn't seem to be the right thing to do. The council has the ability, through the charter, to convene investigations, to subpoena people. And you may not think you're qualified, but according to the people of this county who put you where you are qualified. It's part of your jobs. It's part of your responsibilities in our charter. The public is crying for an investigation into what's been happening in our prison. Whether the DA did the investigation or not, doesn't matter. We need outside agencies, outside government agencies, or investigative agencies, or something done by the council itself, to look at what's going on in our prison and keep the cost at minimum. I highly doubt that the Attorney General, Shapiro, especially in an election year, is going to charge us $800,000 to do an investigation into what went on in our prison, considering the current nationwide attitude towards corrections officers, police, and everyone else. So I think this is something council needs to take very seriously and not just brush it off. And the investigation needs to be done by outside of our county government or within the council itself, not from within the executive branch. Thank you.
Any other member of the public? I do have an email that was sent to us at about 10 of 9 this evening. Sue Ellen Fairstein, she resides in Lewisburg, PA. Whereas the Luzerne County Council desires to request the Office of the District Attorney of Luzerne County to use the discretion to request the Office of the Attorney General to conduct a criminal investigation into circumstances surrounding the Mackey death. Now, therefore, we be it resolved, the Luzerne County Council hereby requests the District Attorney of Luzerne County to use her discretion to request the Office of Attorney General to conduct a criminal investigation into the circumstances surrounding Mr. Mackey's death. If Josh Shapiro's office did an investigation for free, only the DA can ask for this. Then we take what he finds and move forward with an investigation if needed. And the investigation should be of county council's choosing and or doing, not the county manager. What's the old saying? Don't let the fox watch the hen house. To keep the investigation clean and free from security, isn't this how it should be handled? Again, if the DA refuses to request Josh Shapiro to come in and do the investigation, the money for the independent investigation should come out of the DA's budget, not the general fund. County council should be picking who does the investigation. That's another email that we received about 10 of 9 this evening. Any other public comment? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. McGinley, I just want to make a statement,
okay.
and I need to clarify something.
Go ahead.
I want to be clear. The Attorney General does not send a bill. They did not send a bill to Lackawanna County. Lackawanna County, after the AG's investigation, Lackawanna County paid approximately $800,000 in costs and attorney's fees in defense of that investigation. But I just want everybody to be clear. The Attorney General does not send a bill.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Motion for adjournment?
Well, I'm sorry. It's Beth Hartman. I'd have one comment after that because it's been made clear tonight a couple different times that statement saying that they come in for free. So they do come in for free. It would be, from what I'm understanding, what was just said, that the money that was paid was in defense of what they found. Is that correct?
That's what Ms. Crockmo said.
That's what I just wanted to be clear about. Thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate everybody's comments this evening, especially Ms. Sedman. It was nice to hear really good comments from you tonight. Thank you.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mr. Satan, Ms. Sedman, second.
Kendra?
Ms. Radel, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition, any abstentions, none heard. Motion carries. Good night and stay healthy. Follow the CDC guidelines, please. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Kendra. Good night, Billy Ann. Good night, John Boy.
Good night.